Mm.
Dr. West, I know you've been following these the administration's picks, right, for who's going to be serving in
Oh
certain
yeah,
cabinet positions, right?
yeah.
And I mean, I like to call a spade, right? And I like to
That's right.
say, I, I'm a big fan of saying don't believe my lying ass lies. Well, I do believe my lying ass lies. So in my opinion, the media, and this is mostly mainstream media, has been touting um, the diversity within the new administration and all the
Hmm.
cabinet picks, right? And some picks are good because of the professionalized aspect of what these people have done in their past, and some folks is just a hard pass on some of these positions that we're starting to see get filled out. So my question for you is, what do you think about what you're seeing as towards the hiring of folks, and especially since they keep touting people of color and black folks and women? What do you think about? Is this going to be the third Obama administration, or is this going to be something specifically better than that, or is it going to be worse? What do you think from the picks that are coming out of DC right
Yeah, it doesn't look too good though. But and again, we knew though, by pushing out the neo-fascist gangster, we were trying to avoid this overwhelming catastrophe. But here comes the disaster, and I think at the moment it looks as if it's a disaster. Because see, when you have the rot, the question becomes: are you going to redirect the rot and try to slow the rot down? Or are you
Yeah.
going to lie and deny the rot because you think the rot was only the neo-fascist wing of the ruling class, which was Trump? So they think now they can do away with Trump. They go back to normal and don't
Mm.
realize the normal had the rot in it in a deep way, but it just takes a neoliberal form. And so
Mm.
what we end up with is the recycling of the Clintonites, the recycling of the Obamites in the Biden administration. And
Mm.
and you can see very clearly that they carry with them the same ties to Wall Street. They carry with them the same ties to not just the Pentagon, but the war profiteers. Look at Brother Lloyd Austin. I love Brother Lloyd. He's straight out of Jim Crow, Alabama. You know what I mean? But he's a major figure in the U.S. empire. That he facilitated as a commander the invasion and occupation of the Iraqi people. That's a crime against humanity. That's 500,000 people dead. They'll never talk about the Iraqis dead in the U.S. press
Come
as
on.
if they're not human beings like everybody else,
Right.
based on a lie. You see, he's working for Raytheon right now on the board of directors. What's Raytheon? They're war profiteers. So that on the one hand, you say, oh, it's nice to have a black brother who's now going to be at the higher echelons of the empire because racism has been overcome. But what is the role of the persons in these new positions? That
Mm.
becomes a fundamental question. Same is true with our dear sister from Baker, Louisiana. I love that sister. She's a brilliant sister. She's a beautiful sister. What are they going to do? They're going to send her to the United Nations to justify U.S. policies, including vicious Israeli occupations of
Mm.
Palestinian lands and people. But you put a black face on it, it's going to be harder to criticize.
Yep. Yep.
I want to push back a little bit on you, brother, just to point out
Absolutely.
that, all right, just to point out the fact that we know election has consequences. There was no way we were going to have a progressive dream
That's right.
with Biden's appointments. So
That's
our
right.
hope as progressives was to prevent us from having a progressive nightmare, and I felt like we did that. And to say that we
That's
didn't with these appointments, I mean, we don't have Rahm is not in the administration because of progressives screaming about this. Sumner's is not in his administration because of progressive
that's
screaming. So
true.
I gotta say that overall, the picks of this nomination, because we knew he was a neoliberal, we knew Bernie wasn't going to lead the labor department. We knew that. We knew Warren wasn't going to be in charge of economic. He saw the fights that Elizabeth Warren gave Barack Obama, and he wasn't ready for that. I mean, so let's just say that we're happy that we don't have to fight. The nightmare that we try to prevent because we did. We got what we were expecting, and diversity in the sake of diversity is not a victory for anybody, but we can say that we ain't got to fight the Wall Street bigwigs like we did in Obama's administration. There's some we got to fight for sure, but this administration could have been a lot worse if Rahm would have been a part of it, if Sumner's would have been a part of it.
You are absolutely right, though, brother. The challenge, my brother, for me is that okay, we got Janet Yellen. Janet Yellen is a strong neoliberal. She's got concerns about stimulus. That is a positive thing. She's got concerns about unemployment. That is a positive thing. But what happened when she was chosen? Wall Street broke records.
Ain't that something?
Because they know in the end, all they have to expect is very, very weak regulation. And you see, this is where the lie comes in terms of defunding the police. And this is true for Obama and all of them. You see, when it comes to defunding the police, that's going to regulate Wall Street. They've already done that.
Right. Right.
The police is supposed to be regulating Wall Street gangsters.
They defunded them.
Major. Major. So they're not against defunding the police. They're against defunding certain police. Now the police who end up focusing on suppressing and containing poor black people, they want all the money in the world for that, just like they want all the money in the world for the wars. What is it? $6.5 trillion spent on war since 2001. And they say they're concerned about the budget. Please spare me. We were born at night, but not last night. You find $6.5 trillion. And what did they give Wall Street? Over $18 trillion with the QE. Just buying their toxic monies. They could have been putting that in community. They could have been paying reparations for black people.
That's it.
All those $1 trillion for those few banks. And where did it go? Where did it go? Did it go into working class? Did it go into poor community? So you're right, though, brother. We can take some credit in terms of it not being as bad or worse. But even the ones we ended up with Brother Lloyd and Sister Janet. And now Brother Pissarro, he was for Medicare for all, right? Well, we gonna see. We gonna see how far he's willing to go on this. He voted against the Wall Street bailout. I stood with him. He's my home brother, too. He's from Sacramento. He went to McClatchy High. I went to Kennedy High. He's my Latino brother, right? Team. But once he gets inside of the system, we going to see. If they send him out to justify why we ought not to ever come close to Medicare for all, and he's been talking about Medicare for all these years, we say, oh, Lord, I see. He's been getting well adjusted to injustice too quickly here.
Dr. West, I want to ask you a question about let me just throw it out there and see what you could do with it. Because part of me, while I have everybody on this panel has a pretty robust critique of somebody like Barack Obama, and we couch it in general respect for the role that he plays in the black community, whether we agree with that role or not, we recognize that he's on grandmama's bookshelf, right, on her mantle. We recognize that. But I have two questions to that effect. Number one, what would we have expected of black people in America if not to ascend to the highest office in America, right? If what would we have expected differently from black folks? Because it seems like there's a burden on our back to not only be American, but to be the saviors of America at the same time. And what else were we supposed to do if we didn't pick up the mantle of being the savior of America, to save America from American imperialism, or if we didn't even know about that? Wouldn't it make sense for somebody like Barack Obama to ascend to the highest heights, and then for black people to celebrate him because he went through the channels that we were born in? We were born in this empire. So what else would we have done except for to obtain these positions in the Pentagon, in the White House, in neoliberalism, on Wall Street, as a hedge funder, as black folks?
Yeah, I think that, again, it's just a matter of people being truthful about the limits and constraints under which they find themselves. You see, look at the great black politicians, Harold Washingtons of Chicago. What did Harold Washington do that Obama didn't do? Well, the first thing Harold Washington did was he refused to dismantle his social movement outside of the system. Because he knew he needed pressure from them, given what would be coming at him in Chicago. And he knew the permanent government of any city is big business. So big business was going to be using their politicians to crush him. So he had the social movement outside to continually give him some wind at his back. And he still lost some battles and he won some others. Adam Clayton Powell was the same way coming out of Harlem. So these are politicians. That's why Malcolm X could say, I can't stand the system, it's rotten to the core. I like Brother Adam. Why? Because Adam was telling the truth. He tell the people, this is what I'm up against, y'all. This is what I'm dealing with. But I'm loving you to death. I'm fighting for you. I can't deliver what I really want to deliver. I want to deliver freedom. I want to deliver equality. I can't do that as a politician, but I'm pushing, I'm getting some concessions. That's all politicians can ever do. Tell the people the truth.
Instead of wrapping it, into some archetype, some trope about being a super black man. Just tell us the truth about what you're doing there.
The great celebrity, and everybody bows and kowtows before you, and you invite them to the White House, and they think somehow they have come into paradise. No, that's the same White House built by African slaves, enslaved Africans. It's the same White House that's dropping. How many bombs? 25,000 bombs dropped every year during the Obama administration. People don't say a mumbling word. And Martin Luther King Jr. is telling us militarism is sucking the best out of the American empire. And nobody can say a word about it. They got Martin Luther King Jr. structure in the Oval Office. He's sitting there when they have the killer list. They choosing from the killer list as to who they gonna kill that week, including 3 American citizens with no due process. That's gangster activity. You don't kill folk just because you got political differences with them. See what I mean? Here around the world, you don't do that. But Israel just intervene and kill people in Iran. Who called that a criminal act? Did the New York Times say anything about that as a criminal act, a violation of international law? Hell no.
Nah.
Hell no. Everybody knows it's a gangster act. You don't go around killing folk in other countries because you disagree with them.
Come on.
Somebody from Brazil want to kill an American politician because they're a gangster? They got a lot of candidates who are gangsters. You don't be killing American politicians. That's wrong. That's a violation of act. That means that America can't do it. It means that England can't do it. It means that Ethiopia can't do it. It means that Israel can't do it. But no. People living a lie. They can't say a mumbling word about it being a violation of international law, a criminal act. Now, to give John Brennan credit, he's been tied to state-sponsored terrorism for most of his career from the U.S. side. He called it a criminal act. I give him credit for that. He stumbled on the truth.
How about
stumbled on the truth?
That means that the drones that he's been tied to, that means that the policies he's been tied to are criminal acts too. Appreciate that, Brother Brennan. He was Obama's main man. And Bush's too. So it's just a matter of saying, you got AFRICOM in Africa. You got 4,800 military units, 800 around the world. Russia and China together only got less than 30. And yet somehow we are scared of them as competing superpowers. Please. Let's be honest. 57 cents of every dollar goes to the military, which means we don't have no money for education, don't have no money for health care, don't have no money for jobs with a living wage, don't have no money for decent housing. And we can't have a critique of that. Barbara Lee, Brother Bernie Sanders, and Brother Marcus knows about that. They call for a 10% decrease. It needs to be decreased about 40 or 50%.
Wow. Listen, I wanna tie a couple of things in. Something you said earlier. So I'm glad you're talking about decreasing the military. A lot of people believe that America's military is strong because of like this fear of our neighbors or across either water or either pond, right? When in actuality, it's tied to South Carolina's appetite for slavery, and people don't talk about that. The growth of the military started when South Carolina continued to bring in more slaves after, well, I should say Africans, and enslaved them. Even against the neighbors from the north and west, saying, hey, you got to stop if you ain't sending your soldiers up. So I in that vein, I saw Clyburn introduce a bill to, these people, you said they're not for defunding the police. This is what I want to tie it to. Clyburn and his people ain't really pushing for reparations, but he put forth the bill to give reparations basically to African Americans soldiers from World War II. As a veteran, I hear that, but I also think that's the easy way out. If you're pushing for reparations for soldiers who didn't get the GI Bill, who are long gone, and you're trying to give it to their grandparents, then why aren't you brave enough to push for black folk who are descendants of slaves in this country?
Absolutely.
So I
Absolutely.
asked, what do you think about Brother Clyburn's I'm gonna call it reparations for Black World War II veterans, but not for all of us?
Yeah, I think that, it's a strategic move because so many, too often our black politicians, they kind of just want to check and see what the temperature is, because they love to be
Weather
thermometers rather than thermostats. They just
Mm-hmm.
want to reflect and see if they can diffuse it rather than exercise real leadership and shape it and guide it in that way. They know the reparations movement is on the move. You got Sister Yvette Cornel, Brother Antonio Moore with Adolphs and the others raising their voices in a serious way. And that's a long tradition of reparations going all the way back to the Africans themselves. Mother Moore, Randall Robinson, Clarence Charles Ogletree. I've been part of the reparations movement for 40 years. Ron Daniels. We can go on and on and on. But it's clear that they don't really understand the depths of the truth and the justice of the reparations movement. If they were to read Brother William Dougherty and Sister Mullen's book, From Here to Equality, they would understand that there's three pillars of reparations. It's slavery, it's Jim Crow, which is American terrorism, and there's ongoing discrimination going on. So if they began a dialogue talking about what just veterans, they figured, well, the white mainstream might have an openness to it, and therefore he can open the door. Okay, well, that's fine. But, truth and justice is not about just opening little doors in a narrow way. You got to hit it head on. You got to speak it head on. And so, so in that sense, again, a certain kind of concession is possible. But I don't know why people just don't want to accept the fundamental truths and fundamental commitments of justice in terms of what was done to black folk and what kinds of responses to that unjust treatment is warranted. And that's what reparations is all about. Let's understand the truth of the past. What was really done? Why were black people worth more than all the railroads and all of the industrial units in America in 1855? Why did it require bloodshed? We just celebrated the 161st anniversary of the execution of John Brown.
That's right.
December 7th, 1859. The same week, when I say celebrate, I mean commemorate.
Right.
We commemorated the execution of Fred Hampton. They go hand in hand. The killing of John Brown, the killing of Fred Hampton in Chicago. Right. Both of them bearing witness to a deep love for black people. One was vanilla, one was chocolate. Deep love for black people. Right. But the chronic institutionalized forms of white supremacy are still grinding and crushing folk. From 1859 to 2020, you see. And that's what we have to be honest about. And we're honest about it, not in the sense of fetishizing it, you see, because the white supremacy has been so vicious that the black middle class can use it as a weapon for their upward mobility as they turn their backs on black, poor, and working people. So they can invoke the racism that's so vicious and then look for the benefit to them rather than the benefit for everybody.
That's it.
And that's where we are now in terms of this class issue. That's why any talk about identity, racial identity, sexual gender identity, national identity, if it's not rooted in spiritual and moral integrity that's tied to a witness of solidarity for the least of these, it is sounding brass and tinkling cymbal. It is too empty and vacuous. That's what neoliberal talk about diversity is. So that you end up with a more colorful predatory capitalism. You end up with a more diverse American imperialism. So you walk around thinking you woke. No, you ain't woke. That's just one eye that you got open for yourself.
Hey, Dr. West, what you say? Defund the police, but you got black police. Well, what about the black
know
police?
the racism within their own departments. Some of them conform, some of them do not, because you can always keep track of individual choice, right? Anytime you talk about a larger group, you got persons who make decisions over against the group. You know, Martin Luther King Jr. was a petty bourgeois Negro preacher coming out of a petty bourgeois Negro school, a Morehouse. But he decided to do what? To love everyday people.
Right.
That's the best of Morehouse. Eddie Glaude's another, but we can go on and on. That's the best of Morehouse. You know what I mean? W.B. Du Bois, another petty bourgeois Negro coming out of Harvard University, ruling class institution of the American Empire, crushing more Negroes than he can ever count. But Du Bois says what? I'm going another way. I'm following truth and justice, you see. And so it is some of those police. They can go another way. They can tell the truth about the cultural silence. They can tell the truth about the ways in which the blue too often degrades and dishonors black people. They can tell the truth about the institutionalized practices. People make a choice. And this is true for everybody. It's true. It's true.
So
That's why they asked Malcolm X, can white folk join your organization of Afro-American Unity? What did he say when he got off that plane? He said John Brown could. John Brown could. Yeah, if you meet that level of spiritual and moral greatness in terms of loving black folk, you can join my organization even if you can't sing in tune or if you're offbeat sometimes. That's all right. Come in and join this organization.
You said if they on the 1 and 3 instead of the 2 and 4. Go ahead, Marcus.
Hey, so Dr. West, I'm not certain how long we got you, but I do want to do something real quick. Clickbaity political thirst
I'll
trap.
stay on as long as y'all like. How long is the show today?
To 10 o'clock.
At 10?
10 o'clock. Yeah. So
Y'all
about
stay
another
till
30
10
minutes.
now. Lord, now I
can't stay that long.
I don't want to intrude. I'll stay till 10 if you like.
No, you're not intruding at all.
Oh, that's
Intrude.
That's
Hey,
fine.
this is-
Oh,
you mean
no,
inspired?
y'all-
You mean
y'all-
inspired by?
y'all show with that.
Bro, we might, but I'm afraid we might go over into some roasting or something that like we don't want the professor to have to stick around for all our shenanigans, though, right? You know?
No, we can-
That's real too.
We can
That's
we
real.
can be good for we can be good for an hour. Dr. West, if you wouldn't mind, real quick, just Trap Squad. Listen, we brought Dr. West on here for you guys, and we ain't at 1,000 likes. So, like, I would like for y'all folks to actually like stop what you're doing unless you're driving a car and get the likes up on Facebook, get the likes up on YouTube, right? You can follow us at Clickbaity Political Thirst Trap on Patreon. See Thirst Trap on Twitter and Instagram and Clickbaity Political Thirst Trap on Instagram and Facebook.